Coming to you from our opulent and luxurious 4x8 refurbished room closet at the national headquarters in Indianapolis. With duct tape studio lights and a mic that you barely can hear, we hope to entertain and educate you. This is the Tango Alpha Lima podcast.
They call me crazy cause I'm facing all my giants. They try to scare me into thinking I can fight it. They tell me I should never even think of trying. But that's just me, I'm gonna live out in defiance.
Hello, and welcome back to the Tango Alpha Lima podcast. I'm your host, Mark Seavey, coming to you from our national headquarters here in Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm joined, as always, by my two co-hosts, Ashley Garbolja Maldonado from our nation's capital in Washington, D.C., and Jeff Daly coming at us from Hollywood, California. Ashley is a former MP in the Ohio National Guard, and Jeff is a former Marine who was working on his Eddie Murphy look-alike, but he shaved the mustache. And I cannot tell you how upset I am with that.
That mustache, you would have only been happy for like 3 minutes. I was doing an in-progress shave. And
dude, it was spectacular, though. You looked so much like you were going to stay at the Beverly Palms Hotel, and it was spectacular. Ashley looking as angry as ever, which is always fodder for the show. So we love that.
Thank you.
Hey, come on, smile. Big Ten football is back in about a month and a half. All right. Well, we are joined today by a very special guest. That's Anaya Crocker, and I say unhesitantly say one of the favorite people I've ever had at Boys State and Boys Nation. Anaya was elected the president of Boys Nation, and I don't even know how many years ago it was now. How many years ago was it?
Oh my gosh, I think 2016, is that right? 2016, so 4 years now?
Which was
correct.
Which was a spectacular year for Boys Nation, and by far the best Boys Nation year we've ever had. And we will go into that in a little bit, but I will say that I had a gentleman's bet at that Boys Nation, and I won $1 when Mr. Crocker was elected president. And I don't believe the race was close, and it was all over but some pitiful crying after the debate, but it was spectacular. And I will say, too, that the voice that you're about to hear from Anaya Crocker is his actual voice. It's not a radio guy voice, which is amazing because if everything else fails, and I know you're about to take the LSAT, and if all that falls through, you've got to go work for audible.com. You've got to be I need to have you reading The Hobbit to me so I can go to sleep to it every night. But I am not going to go into Anaya's background too much. I will note that, as I said, he's looking to potentially go to law school. He's a musician. He's an incredibly talented speaker. And he's at Vanderbilt, which is one of the best colleges and universities in the country, in my opinion. So, Anaya, thank you so much for joining us. One of the things that we wanted to talk to you about, and you kind of ruined the surprise by not watching the Boys State documentary, which is abhorrent to me. But the Boys State documentary is really bringing that program to the fore. And first of all, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're doing now, and then maybe walk us through your experience at Boys State and then what you found at Boys Nation.
Right. So, I did kind of spoil the milk by not watching the Boys State documentary. It's not for any reason other than the fact that I'm, as you said, prepping for the LSAT. So between sleeping and eating and that, I really don't have much time for anything else. A little bit about myself. I am a native Tennessean, so the accent as well is real. Yeah. Just from about 45 minutes outside of Nashville, a little town called Springfield. Beautiful town, agricultural community. Our big staples were whiskey and tobacco, which explains some of my vices. So happy to come from that community. Took an interest young into kind of politics and the law. Also have worked as an opera singer and a conductor at the same time of doing all those things. So have done mock trial and, national competitions and speaking competitions and done things like that, worked for campaigns, but also I have worked internationally, internationally as an opera singer, doing competitions, and I'm the conductor of a community chorus in Springfield, an orchestra, as well as working as a Baptist music minister in the town that I come from. So that's a little about me. I went to the Tennessee Boys State program, of course, the volunteer state boys program, which is, I think, the best boys state program in the United States. But again, I may be partial. Our program is operated by the Tennessee National Guard, so it's kind of like a week at boot camp. We're up at like 5 o'clock in the morning. We're expected to have all of our room, everything in form. We're out in formation by city, which kind of function like companies. We're out in front of the flag in the morning. They play the trumpet in the morning, and we all stand there and salute the flag. Then we have our morning kind of brief, and then it's off to whether we're going to PT or whether we're going to go to drill practice or we go to breakfast. And kind of at that program, I realized that I wanted to run for governor because it's just awesome. The whole last day is a full parade and inauguration for the governor. So however many boys are there, I think it runs about 600 to 700. I may be off on that. It's a good deal of boys. All form up, guidons with the flags. They all march. Tennessee also has a boys state marching band. So if you come to boys state and you play an instrument, you go and you want to be in the band, you kind of do that. That kind of becomes your city. So the band leads the way. Police escort, state troopers, news, all the families come. They march all the way down the main drag at Tennessee Tech. They go to the big football stadium there. The governor sits with his cabinet in the review box. Then the adjutant general runs out, and the governor gets to go pass and review. And then there's a full pass and review. Everybody moves over to the big basketball center there, and then the governor gives a big speech, and then he's sworn in by the Chief Justice. So I knew this was something I wanted to do because I was passionate about some of the issues we were talking about, and I decided that in my city I wasn't going to run for mayor. Incidentally, my mayor, a guy named Chip, who's an awesome guy, I go to Vanderbilt with him now. I run into him all the time. So I kind of came up and was a circuit judge first, and then I was elected my party chairman, which probably not supposed to be party chairman and then run for governor, but nobody stopped me. So I was party chairman and then got the nomination and then was able to secure the office of the governor. So served as the governor, then was appointed a senator position and went to D.C. and did Boys Nation. So that's my little walkthrough.
And we'll talk about Boys Nation because that was a year. I remember when the clips came out for the Boys State documentary, and everyone was like talking about the machinations that were going on behind the scenes, and oh my Lord, how could these kids do such horrible things? Well, it everything in the world that I've ever seen pales in comparison to your year at Boys Nation. It was not on your part, I should say. Anaya did largely stay out of the mud, but it was pretty crazy. But Jeff, we'll go to you for the first question.
Ooh, I get to start. Okay, yep. So what I've noticed when doing the little research on you, and it's you seem to
DNA test, criminal background check. Yeah, we've been snooping through your trash.
You seem to turn your back on the way that society has evolved into hyper specialization. You're becoming a Renaissance man, which I appreciate and admire, and attempt to do the same with fewer results than you get. So you excel in a diverse universe of activities, from opera singing to speaking to politics and all of it. And it's fascinating to watch. And probably, if you do ascend to the presidency of the United States, I can't wait to see the biographies that come out of that, because it's fascinating. So my question to you, and there is one, I get there eventually, is how does that experience of being so good at everything and so many different things contribute to your success in a culture that prizes specialization? Like, how do you marry those two things?
Well, first off, let me thank you for a shining shining review of my activities. Your check is in the mail. Thank you, Jeff. I'll get. I'll tell you, you're really speaking at the heart of something I firmly believe. I think specialization certainly is the tide of modern academia, especially especially at the undergraduate level, which I have objections to some degree. There are some degree programs here at Vanderbilt that, to me and to a lot of the professors that I've worked with, are so specific that you almost think, well, isn't that really a graduate level program? Because if you say I get a degree in something as specific as, I don't know, like women and gender studies, that it's not that that's an invalid field, certainly far from it, but it's so specific that at an undergraduate level, I wonder what the job prospects of that are. If I graduate with that, and there are other majors like that. As far as being a Renaissance man, it's funny you say that. I very much so subscribe to the kind of the Renaissance ideals, especially Renaissance in Italy. Kind of what they thought was that you spent this time in your life learning how to learn, and then after that you went and did something that you were good at. So I believe in that very much. I believe that my undergrad and that my high school time are more about learning how to learn than learning something really, 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 really focused. Doesn't mean I can't do it well, but I think we've equated doing something well with only doing that. And I just don't buy into that. I come from a blue collar family. I'm the first person in the family to go to college. And all of those family members are good at a bunch of things. You have to be, when you come from kind of that economic class. You have to be able to fix your own washer and tile a roof and do plumbing work. You have to be. So I was around that type of mentality all through my childhood, which I guess in turn led to me realizing that if I was passionate about something, I cared about something, that there's no reason I can't work really hard and get good at it, whether that be something that's related to something else or something completely different. And I guess in the way that I kind of fit into society is that, I'm very much so a big believer in letting my work speak for itself. And I think that if I'm able to do a number of things well, which I hope I am, that will stand up against if the quality of my work in one specific area is of the same quality of someone who only focuses on that one specific area, then to me that's about 6 to 12, half a dozen of another. So I think that plurality in the minds of anyone, but especially my generation, is one of the most important skills that we can facilitate. So that's what I try to do.
Well, it's interesting to me that especially the opera and actually just the music in general, and because I can tell you, I grew up doing theater. I do not have an operatic voice, so your future is safe in that endeavor. But I took lessons from theater and sports and high school debate and all these things that contribute to the mediocre level of success that I have. Although my mother would probably say it's less than zero. But so I'm curious about the things like, what do you take from your passions that propel you in your pursuits?
Oh boy.
Yeah, way to put them on the spot.
I think that from my childhood and the things that I do as an opera singer or as a conductor or as a history major, when I write a big paper, the one thing that's the same through all of those things, and this may be a roundabout way of getting to what you're asking, but the one thing that's the same through all those things is that we are a species of storytellers. We like to tell stories. We like to have good stories told to us. We learn from stories. We bond through our stories. So whether I'm writing a paper or, doing a comparative analysis of, Roman law, or I'm singing an aria, or I'm conducting a work, or I'm playing piano, I feel as though I am compelled to do so with the intent of telling a story, because that's how we relate to people, is through that exchange of experience. So, I think if there's one thing that I kind of glean from those things that I allow to kind of allow me to do things or feel motivated, it's that I think there's always a good story to tell. And I'm happy to tell the story.
So my last thing, and then because I see Mark getting, this is a quick and easy one. Did you participate in the talent show?
I did. I did. I did participate in the Boys State talent show. I don't think I did anything at the Boys Nation talent show. Did we have one? I can't remember.
I don't think we did.
I don't think we
remember.
did. And if we did, I was. Go ahead.
Was it opera? Did you do opera?
I played piano and I sang. Yeah, that's what I did.
Oh.
So I think I sang the Tennessee Waltz, actually. So
just to throw it out there's a pretty good video of Anaya that the American Legion did, and you can see Anaya playing and I would say that as someone who majored in sub-Saharan African politics, who has never once been to sub-Saharan Africa, I applaud and appreciate it. And I do think that's one of the failings of our undergraduate, is that the things that we really need, the skills that are really needed are, for an undergrad, it should be English. It should be these things that you're actually going to use the rest of your life. Because I can see where, and this is not to bust on geologists, because I love geologists, but if you're studying and getting your undergrad in geology, it's a little hard to go from geology to something else. But on the other hand, I do understand that if you want to be a physicist, you have to start early. And it's kind of a quandary to assume that an 18-year-old has their entire life charted out in front of them. And that is one of the beauties, I will say, of law school too, is that I have friends that it was in law school with that were art history majors and everything else. And once you arrive at law school, no one cares. Literally no one cares what your undergrad was or where you're from or anything else. So, Ashley, are we back online? We are not. Ashley is still incommunicado. So I'll tell you what, we have to pay the bills anyway, so we will take a quick break here, and we will be back with Anaya Crocker, the 2016 Boys Nation president. We will be back in just a few moments.
If you care about disabled veterans and children in need, and we know you do, donate today to the American Legion Veterans and Children's Foundation. Any amount helps. Donate online at legion.org/donate.
All right, we are back here with Anaya Crocker, the 2016 Boys Nation president, and my Facebook friend, and actually I would say my friend. I got to hang out with Anaya at the annual convention that year, and I remember I don't even remember where it was, but I remember I was super excited when Anaya came running up, because no one ever knows who the hell I am, and people largely ignore me. Anaya actually shockingly seemed excited to see me, and I was excited to see him. So it was great being able to, spend time with you. And I, we do have a lot of the boys from that year at Boys Nation have stayed in touch on Facebook, and it is spectacular to see where they're all going. And just to brag on Anaya a little bit, that he kind of briefly mentioned it, but you're going to be conducting somewhere pretty big here in the near future, aren't you, Anaya?
Yeah. I received a contract to make my debut at Carnegie Hall, conducting the Schubert Mass in G. So I'm very excited about that. It's been touch and go trying to make that concert happen with the coronavirus. But the concert's still on the books, and registration's still open for that concert, and tickets are still being sold. So June 5th, 2021, I may have a stick in my hand on stage at Carnegie. So I'm very excited.
We're proud of you, Anaya. All right, let's go to Ashley here. Hopefully she can hear us, and she'll have a question for Anaya.
Absolutely. So before we break, we were talking about higher education and, the expectation at 18, you're supposed to know what you're supposed to do, right? Like we're kind of just fed this line of, hey, if you do this and here's the next milestone. And we talked a little bit about the specialization. So used to work in higher education, used to run a veteran program in a metropolitan city, had just an ample amount of experience working with veterans in transition to students who would come in out of the blue and they're having these pressures, right? So it's like, I have to know what I have to do. I have to get all these A's. I have to get to the next step. And I will say, it's really refreshing to hear that you're really kind of this like jack of all trades, but like there are just these niches that you are just so passionate about. What would be your advice to, students out there who, have thought about getting involved or pursuing their passion? What would you say to them?
I would say have a team of people you can talk to. In both my opera life and my conducting life, my music life as a whole, and my political and public speaking and those things, I've been blessed to have a team of friends, advisors, confidants that I can go to and talk to. Sound counsel and reasoned decision making are imperative at this age if you are pursuing your passion. For example, I love music. And up until this past July, intended to attend graduate school for music. I'm kind of, having a late game change up here, deciding that I'm going to take the LSAT. Now, granted, I have a second major in law, history, and society, so I'm not totally removed from that field. But the coronavirus shut down my industry. It shuttered it. And I was fortunate to have, a job that I was able to continue working in, but a lot of my friends were not. And it made me realize that on the note of specialization, my path is highly specialized. When it comes to extractable skills, if I didn't have a law, history, and society second major, it would be hard to apply to certain, positions as a voice performance only major. And I want a political career in my life. That's something I've always known that I wanted. The dream job is to one day be the governor of the great state of Tennessee. That's what I want to do. I have no designs on higher office than that, but the governor of the state of Tennessee is what I want to try for. And, the coronavirus made me realize that while I love music and while I love what I do, I'm not able to have as a direct effect on policy and on people and helping communities as I would like to have. And the law is really the way that I'm going to get at that. So, speaking personally, I use the people around me to help me talk through that decision. So having a good team of people around you and being reasoned and well thought and flexible and adjustable, that's the key to success, or at least it has been for me.
And I thank you for that. I think that is incredibly important for you to say. Having mentorship and having folks that you can just, whether it's spin an idea, whether it's like I want to start a business, or I'm thinking about changing my major, or I, don't know if this is for me. Maybe I'm better off with a tech opportunity where I can work with my hands and be in the trades, right? Mm-hmm. So I think there's so many opportunities out there, and not to limit yourself, but also to think about how you can market yourself and your personal brand. And I think you've done an excellent job with that. And I think with any programming, you can always take advantage of. And I'm sure, Boys Nation was really the epitome that gave you really that next level. So.
I'll tell you, just as a quick caveat, what you were saying there about, technical degrees and things like that. Before I came to Vanderbilt, no one that I looked up to in my hometown, none of my heroes had a 4-year degree. You don't have to have that. That's something we've kind of fed my generation, is that to be good or to be worthy or to make money, you need this degree. And that's just not true. It's not true. All of my heroes were working people. and they were happy to be doing the work.
I will say one thing on the music side is that I saw something recently that in World War II, when they were looking to crack all the codes and they had these code breakers, that the vast bulk of the people that they selected to work in the code breakers were musicians. And I thought that was fairly interesting, that they were able to see patterns and things of that nature that other people don't see. So kind of interesting. Jeff, you're up, buddy.
Oh man, you guys have all said so many things that make me want to ask follow-up questions. Like, so Mark, what you just said about the music thing, I've heard that there is a link between the same parts of the brain that make someone good at music and math. Yeah. And that's one of the justifications for bringing music and arts back into education, which, wow, why don't I just make that my first question? What are your thoughts on arts and education, just in how we better prepare our youth to succeed?
Oh, geez. I think that music is a uniquely human experience, and so is art. They're uniquely human. The oldest civilization, or the oldest town we've discovered, is a town called Uruk, which is out in the Middle East.
I got to interrupt you for 1 second. This is where we get to watch. Ashley and I pay really close attention because we're super interested in this, and this is where Jeff's eyes will glaze over. So go on about Uruk, and please go for as long as humanly possible.
Talking about something in reality. He's not talking about 3-hour movies about places that don't exist. He's talking about something real.
Anthropology is where it's at. Please go on, Anaya.
So, Uruk is an ancient Sumerian city founded around 4000 BC. It's at the kind of now dry eastern channel of the Euphrates River. And it's the earliest example we have of an urban conglomerate. This is a place that was built to last. We have streets, and we have market areas, and we have art on the walls there. So, that represents that represents civilization, society. But some of the earliest human activity we have is on a cavern in Spain. And on this cavern in Spain, these people took their hands and they put them on the wall and they crushed up these ochre and things, and they blew it through a pipe, and it made this imprint of their hands on the wall. And there's no purpose for that other than it looks like art. They're not representative of animals. They're just handprints on the wall. And those are 64,000 years old, which means that 57,000 years before we ever felt the desire to build a city, somebody felt like they needed to create art. I think that's a powerful testimony for the meaning of art as it relates to us as a species. I was inspired through art. I was inspired, even law. Even if I became a trial lawyer, that is still a performance. That is still a creative and artistic experience. A lot of kids go home to places that maybe aren't inspiring for them. And if we pride ourselves on a strong public education system, then an inextricable part of that education system should be the arts, and should be music. So that's my soapbox.
Interesting. So I'm going to pivot a little bit back away from that, because that question just popped in my head. And I'm sure I don't know the answer to this. I looked it up once, but I've forgotten. I'm sure CV will do just like this and tell me the answer about the number of former presidents that have gone through the boys, state, and nation thing. CV, do you know that answer?
No, I don't think I do.
It's quite a few.
I don't either.
It's more than one. I will tell you that. So, your boys, state, and boys nation experience, and the grand total of that experience is 2 weeks. Am I correct?
That's right, between Boys State and Boys Nation. That's
Boys
right.
Nation. So and it sounds like it's such a compact, concentrated experience. And now I think the way that you're speaking about your future endeavors seems really influenced by that, secondarily to the music thing. But I think the music thing probably got you there. That inspiration probably took you along a certain path that got you to made you successful in Boys State and Boys Nation. But what about Boys State? I didn't go. I didn't know what it was till I joined the American Legion, to be honest with you. What is it about Boys State that makes you in particular, and you all, or in your language, y'all, like rise to the top and succeed in so many different areas? I think Michael Jordan was at Boys State, for crying out loud. It just seems like a stew of success. Delicious.
Well, I'll tell you, delicious, quite savory. I'll tell you, the fellows I was around at Boys Nation, though it was for a week, are some of the greatest people I've ever met. And I still talk to them. We have a group me, and we stay in touch, and we talk about politics, and we talk about, then there's a biblical tie in here with the idea of, as iron sharpens iron, so a man shall sharpen another man, which is to say that Boys State, Boys Nation puts you in a community that, at least for a week, you determine the outcome of. So at Boys State, we're our own governance. We're our own system. We're expected to birth leaders in this short period of time that can guide, our societies. So, if I think that there's any kind of magic to that process, it's that suddenly we each go from our disparate lives, boys coming down off the mountain in East Tennessee, up from the Delta in West Tennessee, from the hills and the hollers, and we all come together. And suddenly we are our own state. Suddenly we have our own government. And it sounds silly until you're going off of about 3 hours of sleep, and some sergeant is screaming in your face, and you haven't eaten, and you're sweating, and all the delirium mixes together to where you really care about this as if it were real to you, as if it's real. So when something becomes that real and that meaningful, you want to take care of it. And even though it's only a week, you are awake for the majority of that week, and it's a lot of brain time. I spent a lot of Boys State thinking about, how do I get elected? How can I help? What are the connections I can make? And then at Boys Nation, it was very much so, do I know policies? Do I understand this issue? Well, what if they ask this? So it makes you care, and it makes you care about more than what you're doing next, or in a larger sense, more than about you. It teaches you the value of community and the palpable impact of hard work on a community. So that was kind of the wonder of it for me, was that it taught me how to work with others to improve our environments.
Wow.
That's all. Wait, hold on.
All of the yeses.
Well, I'm going to go back to the music real quick, though. I don't know how you can judge people on music, but my three favorite bands are Flogging Molly, The Grateful Dead, and Leo Mariccioni, who no one has ever heard of, but is a Danish guy that does cover songs. Am I just confused and should be teleported back to 43,000 BC to start over again, or is there hope for me?
There's hope for you. I mean, I listen to. I don't know if there's hope for you, but it's not because of the music if there's not hope for you. It's other stuff. Could be all the gray in that beard is what it could be. It could be all that. But, as far as music goes, I love opera music. You won't find me riding around town listening to it. When I'm driving around town, I'm listening to, I don't know, Orleans or Steely Dan, the greatest band of all time, or yeah, don't you do that, okay? There's no room for debate with Steely Dan. Donald Fagen and Walter Becker got it right from the first album to the last one they put out. Or I listen to, I mean, I listen to people like Gordon Lightfoot or Jim Croce. I mean, this is the stuff I listen to, opera and popular music, or jazz, it's just an extension of what's going on up here. So everybody's got their own taste, and that's great. There's I'm not one of these people that thinks there's a real hierarchy to music. It's a craft. It's an art. It's not a horizontal. It's a plane.
You kind of won me back with Gordon Lightfoot. I will say that there have been occasions where I've gone drinking in the afternoons. Very rare, mind you, but occasionally I've been known to go with a coworker, and we always use the jukebox, and our walk-off is the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. So,
great tune.
It's a spectacular tune, and I would note that it's Edmund Fitzgerald was a Legionnaire, but
there you go.
His family apparently is not overly eager to talk to us, despite our numerous efforts to get them on the record, just because we'd love to go up to Wisconsin or Minnesota, wherever they are.
Lake Superior, right? Isn't that where it happened?
I believe. I don't know.
I don't know
Ask me
if Ashley
in about 4 hours.
I have a question for Ashley. Do you know what the Great Lakes state is? I don't know if you know. The state that 20% of the world's fresh water borders? I don't know.
Yeah, Lake Gitchagumi.
Well, that's what our super producer Holly is saying. Is that where she's saying that
in here
the Fitzgerald went down?
Yep.
And Ashley will not say Michigan. She won't say it.
So, Anaya, one of the
Lake Erie.
As you know, we all stay in touch kind of on Facebook with the group, and I worked on Capitol Hill for I think about 15 years, and I was a lobbyist there, one of the hated lobbyists, although they really shouldn't be hated when you really look at what lobbyists do. But one of the reasons I left was because I got super exhausted, frustrated, tired by both wings to a really big degree. And admittedly, at the time, I was sort of further to the right, but I found myself closest to particularly Democratic members of the Congress who were kind of Southern Democrats, and one of whom, and I hope I'm not going to ruin you by saying this, but I analogize you a lot to a fellow Tennessean, Harold Ford Jr., who was a Democratic congressman, but he was so reasonable. And it came up to me most recently when I read your op-ed that you had written in the newspaper about Black Lives Matter. And it seems, particularly on Facebook and on the internet, that whoever yells the loudest and whoever goes to the most preposterous lengths is the one who gets the attention. I found what you wrote to be eminently relatable to every human being. It was very difficult, coming from any standpoint, I would have thought, to have found fault in that. And I applaud them for actually posting it. But politically speaking, you do seem to shy away from the wings. I haven't seen you do that. Now, I know there are other kids at Boys Nation who tend to be wingers on both sides. But what does that mean to be in the middle for you, and how do you see that moving forward?
I'll tell you, this is my own bias. There is a brand of moderation that has persisted in the state of Tennessee, kind of since Reconstruction, that I really think is kind of the well fount of true societal change. Now, in the current political age we're in, that is changing, and I think that's unfortunate. But you look at people like Governor Phil Bredesen, who was a Democratic governor we had here in Tennessee, who's business savvy, brilliant, kind, caring, intellectual, quiet, reserved. His governorship ends, and then Bill Haslam is elected, a more outgoing Republican businessman. And I've been fortunate to be in the room with the two of those gentlemen while they're together, and the fellowship and the friendship and the intellectual kinship those two men share is a remarkable experience. And you hear this all the time. You hear people say, well, we reach across the aisle. But it's more than feel-good language. I think when people think of people like myself, or maybe even like you, who don't strongly identify with the wings, people tend to think of that as some type of passive resting state. I actively choose where I am. I have strong opinions about all the hot topic issues. The problem is that when you have a political system that in some way, I'm not saying in its totality, but in some way prizes itself on the ability to galvanize certain parts of the populace, then in galvanizing those parts of the populace, you have also crystallized their thinking. And when you have a populace with a crystallized thinking, when you have a populace that has become immovable, almost to the point of religious fervor over what it is they deem appropriate, well, then there's very little ground to be exchanged or won either way. It was, I think it was, I'm trying to remember his name, spoke to us at Boys Nation, actually. I think it was Wells Ellenberg. Is that a name? Wells, was talking to Wells afterwards, and Wells makes this kind of offhand joke. He's exactly right. He goes, politicians don't drink enough anymore. He's exactly right. It used to be when a politician would come to D.C., they would go and they would sit and they would have a drink or whatever, and they'd hash out, and we'll figure it out and we'll break. But then when they went home to their districts, they didn't necessarily talk about what they didn't get done. They talk about what they got done. Well, in the age of mass media, that's gone. When every politician has an instant link to the world, then the stakes are immediately so much higher. There is no more of this, it's okay to give and take. My political position is that in the American Republic, governance has to be made with the idea of the greatest good in mind. That at some point, if you attempt to govern a country as large as this, with a population as large as this, that is as diverse as this, if you govern that country with anecdotal, highly specific, or galvanized rhetoric aimed at 10, 15% of the population, then it will, as a pendulum, offset and upset the other side of the swing. To me, the moderate, centrist, for lack of a better word, slow, reasoned history of politics we've had in the state of Tennessee is a model that I'll carry whenever I run for office. Doesn't mean I don't take hard positions. It doesn't mean that I may not be considered pretty far left on one thing and pretty far right on something else. But it means that the unfortunate pigeonhole of the two-party system that we've created, especially in the last 10 to 15 years, is not sufficient for the ideas I have politically. And God willing, most American citizens will realize that our current political space is just not big enough for people who like to think.
Yeah, and just to close this out here, talk a little bit about what you have learned from, what did you walk away from Boys Nation? You walked away with friends, and to reiterate what Jeff said, I mean, it's a week. Right. We have a big sign that says it's a week that'll change a life. Was it a week that changed your life? Because it certainly seems to have.
Yeah, I mean, it's completely changed my life. Yeah, I mean, it made me realize that being an American is an active, passionate undertaking. It made me realize that loving this country is understanding that we are always in a state of recognizing who we are and the people we're made up of, and that's okay. It's okay to have our opinions challenged, and God forbid to change your opinion about something. Being around those gentlemen who I consider to be some of the best friends I've ever had, made me realize that it's okay to be proven wrong. It's okay to change my opinion. But that as long as I know and can trust in my heart that the man or woman I'm sitting across the table from genuinely in their heart believes that they're after the pursuit of improving the Republic, well, then their efforts are just as valiant as mine. Now, that was what I took away from Boys Nation.
Perfect. Jeff, you got any final thoughts?
I'm just kind of upset that I'm too old to go to Boys Nation. It would be kind of creepy. My final thought really is just that, and it came up during Mark's questioning of you, is I preach often about political intellectual integrity and how it seems to me that no umbrella of a wing or anything else can encompass the full totality of someone's thinking. What I think about peanut butter should have nothing to do with what I think about sunshine. But the way that we do it now is you and I might agree on peanut butter, but if we disagree on sunshine, I'm all of a sudden now the enemy. Mm-hmm. And we blame politicians for a lot of things. But and I'm going to ask you one final question. You're supposed to just give a final thought. Doesn't some of the fault lay with we the people? Aren't the politicians really just fighting for our vote? And that the gap that we've created makes them again specialize, hyper target people that they can convince to show up to the polls, because the idea isn't to govern, the idea is to win. So isn't some of that on us, the way that we behave towards each other?
Yeah, well, I mean, Americans are, if I had to have one critique of what I feel like has happened, that's after that, is we've become very, very lazy in our spirit. We've allowed ourselves to be lulled into the idea that we somehow need politicians to tell us what we feel. And that's not true. You're right. Politicians are trying to secure votes, and that's not inherently bad. But when you have a populace that is relatively uneducated about the functions of the government, which we are, and when you have a populace that no longer trusts in its own intellectual ability to exact change and reckon with forces larger than me and myself personally, then it becomes a bad thing. So yeah, I think the populace does share the blame, and I think it's an overarching blame is that we no longer trust ourselves to determine what's best for us.
Look at Jeff asking a question. Now he's forcing me into hating sunshine and peanut butter. That's it's the way it's going to be. Ashley, any final thoughts?
I just want to say this has been a very profound conversation, and I appreciate the wisdom that you have brought. And I wish I could just duplicate you, and I wish I could take you to my class. I'm doing my master's in public leadership. I just want to pop you in there, and I just want people to hear what you have to say, because what you have to say is important. And you are very well informed, and I have no doubt in my mind that whatever endeavor you set yourself up for, you are going to be successful.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Anaya, I'm looking forward to seeing you at Carnegie Hall. I'm looking forward to seeing you at the Supreme Court someday, and God willing, someday we'll see you in the White House. But guys, from all of us, thank you, Anaya, for joining us. Jeff, good seeing you. Ashley, good seeing you, and we will talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much.